You don't have to be a millennial to be socially savvy. We believe anyone can join Generation Social Media, and your journey starts now. This is the Generation Social Media Podcast by Chatterkick.
Welcome to another episode of Generation Social Media Podcast. I'm Allison Gates. I'm the creative manager at Chatterkick, and I've asked Kira Wright to join me in talking a little bit more about executive social, what it is, and some of the cool things that we're able to do, and what our clients are thinking about that. So, Kira, just kind of to start things off, talking about executive social, how would you describe executive social to someone who is interested in potentially exploring that service?
Okay, well, how I would describe executive social is it's a branding solution, but for your personal brand. And I know that lines can kind of get crossed when it comes to that because LinkedIn, usually people don't use LinkedIn for their personal page. Usually they're going to Instagram or Facebook or something like that. But it's really a good tool for executives and business owners, or like our CEO, Beth, to kind of elevate their brand outside of what they would usually be posting on LinkedIn for their company. So really, it's just a service that will help them reach out to their target audience and make some more human connections and make some meaningful connections that can just kind of allow them to branch out and establish themselves as like a thought leader. That's how I would explain it.
Yeah, and I think one thing too that's a bit different than executive or than typical social content for brands is executive social really focuses on your personal brand. So a lot of times we've seen some of those leadership level people within companies, they just become kind of a mouthpiece for their brand. They're sharing the content, which is great. But there's also so many different levels to that person. Like we want to know about like how did they get to that point in their career? What advice do they have for people who want to do something similar, want to learn from them? There's so many different ways that you can kind of build your personal brand and showcase, you as a full human beyond just talking one note about what your company does and how they do it. I think it's, if you think about it a lot like a dinner party, you're not sitting next to someone and talking to them about one thing. You're like, what are you interested in? What movies are you watching? How did you, your backstory is really interesting. How did you get to where you are now? So, incorporating all of those things and the company's or, that person's associated company is all part of kind of how we develop the personal brand for each of our executive social clients. And so kind of leads into how we do our process for that, which is a little bit different because, this curated content concept versus a created content approach is a little bit different. So what we do for executive social is we like to have a call with the client. We get to know them. We get to know their goals on social media. A lot of that establishing a personal brand, it comes down to consistency. And, executive level people are extremely busy. They're concentrating on a lot of things, and oftentimes their social media presence is one of those things that gets pushed off to the side easily. And so providing that consistency within their voice is one thing that we're able to help them with. And to understand their voice is why we have that initial call with them. So we will meet with the client, ask them a ton of questions, see what existing content that they have out there so we can kind of comb through all of that and see what their current digital footprint looks like. And then we create kind of their own personal brand doc, and we'll share that with them and confirm, this is your preferred topics that you want to talk about, your goals that you want to reach, and the tone that we want to hit within content. And so it's kind of a different approach versus having created content where there's that approval process for the visual creative, where the curated content we can just we know that that's already been approved content that we can pull from and still capture some of that thought leadership information and share that on behalf of the client, as well as interact with their connections and make those relationships a bit deeper. And so it's so much more than just posting content on LinkedIn. It's making those actual connections. And, Kara, I know you've been able to talk to clients about some of those results that we're seeing and some of the connections that we've made, even, in that immediate kind of increase you can see. Can you talk a little bit about that and any of those like aha moments that you've seen from clients so far?
Yeah, I think one of them is I was sharing, and it seems like it's such an easy fix, but just instead of just reposting, like posting a quick little blurb about what you think about what you're reposting. Um, Immediately you can see more views, more likes, more interactions in the comments, and it's because you put your own little spin on it. Like people really are craving that right now. So it's just a tiny little tweak, and people don't think of it. They're like just hitting the repost button, but that really can make such a difference. And I think that was one of the most surprising immediate ones that people could see. They're like, oh, wow, people like this. And it's like, they don't just like that content. They like what you have to say about the content.
Right. Exactly. Well, and it's so funny because it's such it's kind of like a snowball effect, right? So like you put something out there, people start to interact, you put more out there and they interact more people start to view your profile. Now, all of a sudden, your search results are impacted based on some of the content that you're sharing. So it really is something that can make a pretty significant impact on your kind of digital footprint and again those relationships and positioning yourself as that thought leader in this space. One other super cool thing that we're doing that is one step further, I think, than some of those high level metrics of, how many more views are you getting on content or what is your engagement rate, is that granular data. So we actually go in and we'll track some of those metrics. We'll actually go in and we'll track the engagements on each post, and the people who are engaging, their, relationship to the client, and we'll categorize those, and that will kind of help to lead our proactive engagements. So we consider a proactive engagement something that we're, if we're commenting on another user's post or reacting to content by another user, we really want to make sure that all of those interactions are as valuable as possible. So if we see, if Kira is really commenting on all of the awesome content that I'm putting out on LinkedIn, then I want to make sure that I'm interacting. And again, it's like a real relationship building kind of moment. And then any of those, high value interactions, we can pass to that client and say, Kira's really been interacting with your content. Do you, is there, do you have any offline interactions with them? Are you, do you have a lunch set up? Is this someone that you've met at a conference or, whatever? So we can kind of make that online, offline connection. And a lot of our clients have seen a ton of value out of that. And there's some interesting metrics as well, because sometimes, it's a competitor that maybe they're not interacting on your content, but you can see that they are viewing that content, and it's something that has been pretty insightful, that kind of granular data that we're able to share. So then all of a sudden now, these people, these users that are interacting, they're not just numbers. It's like a face to the name, or a brand that is maybe you wanted to attract, or maybe you're finding it interesting that they're attracted to your content. And that's some of the data that we're able to share with clients. It's been super intriguing on their end, and yeah, exciting to share. So for executive social, Kira, if someone was on the fence, I know, there's always the kind of barrier of how are you going to sound like me? How is this going to be real if it's, you're an extension of me? So how would you kind of answer that question or work through that kind of process with a client who's questioning?
Um, well, first, I feel like my favorite part is the interviews that we do with our clients. I'm just like this in general. My friends can probably just tell you I am always like, "What's your Myers-Briggs personality type?" Like I have to know that.
Yeah.
Like I don't know why I nerd out about that, but I have to. And I'm like, "Have you taken any?" Like I have to know this. I have to know
Mm-hmm.
like if you were an animal, what kind of animal you are. Like
Mm-hmm.
so, I think that's one of the really creative points that we have that a lot of other agencies or other services wouldn't have. We've really dig deeper than like, okay, well, what do you want to talk about? We can just get a copywriter and just write copy for this. We really dig into who they are below surface level. So we really let their personality shine.
Mm-hmm.
And we also get a feel for just things they enjoy in their personal life. I don't think it's something that they're used to talking about at work, because even
Right.
in the interviews, people can be somewhat hesitant to get into the groove because it feels like, well, it's work. I'm supposed to talk about, I love work. Work is fun.
That's so great. Yes.
I love what I do, right? And it's like, yeah, but like, do you read books? Do you like TV shows? Like, we can make all of this connect because it literally does connect in your life. You are this person and you are doing this thing, and we just want to communicate that to your audience. So the interview is probably the big highlight that I would talk about if someone was on the fence and wasn't sure. We don't try to sound like you. We literally could just take we're curating content. We're not making it. So we're taking interviews, podcasts, blogs, like things that you wrote or said already, and we're
Mm-hmm.
just recycling it and making it brand new for your audience.
Yeah. So side note, if you were an animal, what animal would you be?
Oh, me, I would be a dolphin. And you know what? I hesitate to say that because someone said the other day that there was like a TikTok about how dolphins are scarier than sharks because they're so smart or something like that. And I'm
Oh,
like,
you're
that's kind
just
of
scary
scary.
smart, Kira.
I know, but I'm like, but they like to talk to each other and they like to hang out, and that's my vibe.
Yeah, that's funny. Um, yeah, I mean, I think one other thing, on the one thing that's worth kind of pointing out is, even though we're creating content and managing this profile on behalf of, these executives, it's still their profile. I mean, they can most definitely log in, interact, comment on things, post their own content for sure. It's, you're, in working with us or having executive social, like, you're not giving up that. We are just here to help supplement, maintain that consistency when needed. And also, any content that we are publishing on your behalf is something that, unless you say so, we will give you editing rights to that. Like, you can take a look before it's published, and so you can make sure, like, yep, this sounds good, this is something I want to talk about, because sometimes there's some of that inner workings with business that you're like, well, I don't want to focus on that right now. But those are all things that we can keep on the back burner for future content, and then keep moving forward. Another great thing that I really like to do is jump on a video call and just talk about the industry, talk about what's happening. It's a great way to get content and get ideas directly from, some of our clients. And it's a much more relaxed environment than like, okay, I'm going to sit down and interview you. It's just kind of a conversation. And in those moments, then we're able to use, maybe we're not using the video, but we would use quotes from that, or even just have that kind of guide content direction for, a certain campaign, if, period of time within content. So there's a ton of ways that we can kind of get curated content where it's not a huge lift for clients too. I think that's one thing we've talked about this too, of like, we're here to have it be, to take something off your plate, right? We don't want this, we don't want this to be like an extra thing for you to do. Like, oh, now here's more people I have to manage, or more, another thing to worry about. Like we're kind of like sweeping it up away from you if you want. I mean, you can really be as involved as you want to be for that. So,
we want to save them time and effort. That's the goal.
Right. Is there anything that, like, as we're kind of going through and working with some of these clients, is there anything that surprised you so far?
Something that surprised me so far. I think it surprised me how quickly they can see results from the way that they post or the cadence, because on other platforms like Instagram that everybody's always so upset about, like, it's like no matter what I do, I'm not seeing results.
Oh, sure.
Especially with brands, like we kind of have to test things out, and I mean it can take time. I've done reporting for other clients, like on a company side, not a personal brand side, and it does take time, like with campaigns or with different branding that you're trying to put out there. But with this, it's like I could show you a week's results, and I can show you how quickly more people have been searching for your name in LinkedIn, like immediately. It's shocking, like how fast that can happen.
Right. The impact, like, again, just the impact of that consistent content going out. It doesn't have to be daily. Like, LinkedIn would love it if you posted daily. That's why, like I had mentioned, we are there to help create consistency, to supplement any additional content that you are posting. But if you kind of hand us the keys and we're kind of driving that account, you'll still be able to see results. And since it is so relationship focused, that, you don't have to reach 100,000 people to see a ton of value. You can reach that one person that you're like, oh, I've been talking with them, they're a potential client. That's huge value. And a lot of our clients have been able to kind of see that and kind of connect those dots that if someone is potentially going to be working with you with your brand, they want to see, who is this person I'm going to be working with? Who am I partnering with? And so having that personal brand side and that authority really does help to build authority to have that.
It does.
Awesome. Well, thanks for joining me, Kira, and kind of talking about this service line. I know we're super excited about it. And thank you for listening. And be sure to join our next Generation Social Media podcast.
That's it for this episode of Generation Social Media Podcast. If you had an aha moment or just a ha-ha moment, I would be so grateful if you leave a review with the moment you loved most. If you have a question you'd like us to answer on the next episode, fill out the form on generationsocialmediapodcast.com.